The Canon R50V is such an amazing camera for the price, but the lens you choose to use with it is just as important as the camera itself. And if you're new to interchangeable lens cameras, it can be really overwhelming to figure out which lens to buy. That's why in this video, I'm breaking down some of the best lenses you can pair with the R50V, whether you are on a budget or looking to get the most out of this camera.
You gotta just press record.
Hey, welcome back to Think Media, Nate here. Now, before I dive into the specific lenses in this video, I do want to mention that the Canon R50V is an APS-C size sensor with the Canon RF lens mount. So when you are shopping for a lens, make sure that says RF or RFS, which is going to be designed specifically for this smaller sensor. So for this video, we're primarily looking at APS-C lenses, although one is full frame, which we'll talk about later. But let's start off with some of Canon's options if you are starting out and on a budget. And by the way, I'll leave links to all the gear mentioned in the description down below. Now, the first lens you might pick up with the Canon R50V is actually the kit lens, which is a new lens designed from Canon. It is the 14 to 30 millimeter lens, and this has some pretty unique features. Number one is very lightweight and compact, which is going to be easier to take with you. Number two, it has a power zoom, meaning get very smooth push-ins and pull-outs with just adjusting this rocker on the lens or on the camera itself using this rocker. And third, this lens has image stabilization, so if you are filming handheld video, it's going to help remove some of those shakes and jitters. Now, the reason I would recommend someone who would pick up the kit lens is because number one, it is pretty affordable to get up and running. And two, you actually can understand and learn different focal lengths. This one lens can basically cover you from a wide angle to getting slightly tighter images. And that makes it a great learning lens so you can understand different focal lengths and which ones you actually prefer. I was also impressed by the autofocus performance of this lens paired with the R50V. So if you are filming in front of the camera, you're easily going to be picked up and always going to be in focus. But this lens does have one big limitation, and that is it does not let in a lot of light. So it starts at a maximum aperture of f4 on the wide end, and as you zoom in, it goes down to 6.3. So as you zoom in, you are losing light, and this makes it particularly challenging in low light situations. You have to crank up your ISO in order to get a bright enough image, which makes your image look more noisy and grainy. This also limits how much background blur you can get in your videos. So instead of having a more blurry background, it's going to be a lot more in focus, which may not be an issue if you are wanting that sort of image, but it is a limitation of this lens that you have to be mindful of. Now, there is one more limitation of this lens, and that is if you are trying to film wide angles, filming yourself, then the 14 millimeter paired with the crop sensor of the R50V is not really wide. And so if you are vlogging, then I would recommend taking a look at an ultra wide angle lens, which we'll take a look at in just a second. But price point for this lens is either $330 brand new, or if you decided to buy it with the camera, it costs an extra $200, which does make it an affordable option to get up and running. Now, if you do plan to film yourself in front of the camera, you may want an ultra wide angle lens, and this next option might be just for you. This is the Canon 10 to 18 millimeter lens, and just looking at this lens right here is very compact for an ultra wide angle lens. Let's actually throw it on the camera, and as you can see, this is quite small, compact, but when you actually go to zoom the lens to start at 10 millimeter, it does protrude a little bit, but when you're not using it, you can just collapse it for a little bit extra travel capabilities, a little bit easier to travel with. Now, similarly to the kit lens, this also has image stabilization as well as great autofocus performance, which is ideal if you are filming yourself vlogging. Having those features makes it a lot easier to use specifically for vlogging and with the R50V in particular because it does not have image stabilization. Now, I really like the 10 millimeter focal length when I am vlogging because I can get a lot of my environment within the shot. But also, if I want to enable digital stabilization, it's going to crop into your frame. So having a little bit more room to allow the camera to digitally crop in and stabilize is just helpful for getting smoother vlogs. Now, a couple limitations of the Canon 10 to 18 millimeter is number one, the zoom range is not very much. So when you start at this lens, 10 millimeters super wide, and you go down to 18mm, it's still a very wide angle. You're not going to be able to zoom into tight details or anything like that. So oftentimes I just leave this lens at 10mm so I can get a nice wide angle shot. And the second limitation is very similar to the kit lens. It just does not allow a lot of light. It starts at 4.5 and worsens down to 6.3 as you zoom in. So it just does not allow in a lot of light if you are looking to film in lower light conditions. Again, you're just relying on that ISO to get a bright enough image. And being at these aperture values means that you're not going to have a very blurry background to your videos. So you kind of have to just embrace the fact that when you are using a wide angle lens paired with 4.5, the background might be subtly soft, but not going to be very blurry. But if you can live with those things, I do think this is a great vlogging lens because, again, you have great autofocus performance as well as image stabilization. And the price point is currently on sale for $300. And that still makes it a great option if you are looking for a lens, particularly for vlogging. Now, if you are looking for a lens that can give you a more blurry background and allow more light, then take a look at this next option, which is the Canon 16mm 2.8. Now this is a prime lens, meaning it does not zoom in or out. You are stuck at this one focal length of 16mm. But the benefit is, as you can see, you can get a little bit of a smaller lens, a little bit sharper, as well as having more light go into your camera. So 16mm is a great focal length for talking head videos. If you are trying to do more of a studio setup, maybe it's on a tripod, this is a great lens to consider if you are building out a YouTube studio. Again, this Canon lens is great when it comes to the autofocus performance. As I move in and out of the frame, it reliably keeps me in focus. And the extra bit of light at f2.8 is quite substantial comparing to the kit lens. Going from f4 on the kit lens to f2.8 is twice the amount of light. So you can not only have lower your ISO to get cleaner images and video. And that also means that the background is a little bit more blurry compared to the kit lens. It allows me to stand out from the background. Now, one cool thing about this lens in particular is that it's actually a full frame lens, meaning that if you ever decide to upgrade your camera down the road to a full frame camera, well, this lens is going to work with you. So that does make it a great option if you are looking to invest in a lens. And pair that with its budget price point of $300 or currently on sale for $280. That definitely makes it a good investment if you are looking for a budget prime lens. Now you might be thinking, Nate, I know a 2.8 lens is going to be good, but I want even more shallow depth of field. I want to be able to shoot in the pitch black dark of night. Well, this next lens might be just for you. This is the Sigma 16mm f1.4. This thing is a low light beast and will give you a crazy unique shallow depth of field look for your videos, which will kind of make your APS-C sensor look like it's full frame. Now the Sigma 16 f1.4 is a lens that we have been recommending for years when it comes to Sony cameras, but now that Sigma makes this for the RF lens mount, you can easily just pair this with your R50V and get an amazing result. The build quality is definitely a step up compared to the Canon prime lenses, which are a little bit plasticky. That does mean it is a little bit more hefty, so if you are trying to handheld it, it's a little bit heavier compared to the Canon options. But just take a look at the image quality coming from the Sigma 16 1.4. You can just notice immediately how much blurrier that background is and really help separate you from the background, giving you a more professional result when it comes to your video or photos. Now, when it comes to the autofocus performance of the Sigma lens, as you can see, it is quite reliable, quite snappy, really fast, which is impressive for a third-party lens. Price point for the Sigma 16 1.4 is $484. So if you're looking for a lens that can really give you that shallow depth of field for your videos, this is definitely the one to get. Now, if you want a lens that can essentially do it all, then I would choose the Sigma 18-50 f2.8. You can just tell by how tiny this little lens is very compact, very small, which is going to make it easier to travel with, easier to just take with you. But one of the things I really like about this lens is just how versatile it is thanks to its zoom. So you start at 18mm and you can zoom in all the way to 50mm, which allows you to get those fine close-up details. Or you could zoom back out to 18mm and get a nice wide angle for your talking head video. And the biggest benefit of this zoom lens compared to some of Canon's options is that it's a constant f2.8 throughout the zoom range, meaning as I zoom in, I'm not losing any light. And it's also 2.8, which means you're going to get better low light performance, again, having a little bit more blurry backgrounds. I also love the fact that this lens has a really close minimum focus distance, meaning that you can focus on objects really closely to the lens. This is something I look for when I'm shopping for a camera lens, especially if I'm doing product videos, is I want to have the ability to focus on those fine details. If I had to say one downside of the Sigma 18-50 is that it's not a really wide angle at 18mm. So if you are trying to vlog with the lens, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. And if you are primarily vlogging, then I would actually recommend the Sigma 10-18mm, which again is a constant f2.8. It's a little bit more pricey, but if you only had one lens to pick up for vlogging, that is a great option. Now, if you're looking for a lens that can do both ultra wide angles and also have a fast maximum aperture, then this next lens, which is the Canon 12mm f2, just might be up your alley. Now, when it comes to vlogging, I honestly think that you could just use a prime wide angle lens. I don't find myself needing to zoom in all too often. So having this 12mm is giving you a nice wide angle, but doing it at f2, which is going to give you much more light potential. So let's slap this onto the R50V. This has a metal lens mount as well as a little bit of a weather sealing gasket, which is nice, but this fits very securely onto the camera. You have an autofocus, manual focus switch. And when it comes to the autofocus performance of the Canon 12mm, I did find that it was a bit jumpy and would sometimes lose focus of me, especially when I was coming closer to the camera frame. I would just notice this really jumpy look to the video. That being said, if you are still in front of the camera, it would focus just fine. It just wasn't as fast as some of the other options on this list. Now, it is a bit disappointing that it has this autofocus issue because I do think this could be such a great lens when it comes to vlogging, because it would just give you the right amount of field of view for handheld filming yourself, as well as giving you that blurry background. It just looks so good when you are vlogging. So hopefully there could be an autofocus update for this lens in particular with the Canon R50V, or maybe some other camera company can make a very similar lens for this focal length and having a fast maximum aperture. Price point for the Canon or the Samyang 12mm is $450, which does make it a pretty good budget option if you are looking for a wide angle prime lens. Now, this next lens is not a lens at all. It's actually a lens adapter. This is the Canon EF to RF lens mount adapter, and this allows you to adapt older Canon EF lenses onto your R50V body. And the great thing about this is there are a bunch of really high quality EF lenses that are much more affordable on the used market. For example, I was able to pick up this Sigma 18 to 35mm for just around $400 for this lens. And if you know anything about this lens in particular, it's such an amazing cinematic workhorse of a lens. You go from 18 to 35mm, but it does that as a constant f1.8. But also just has a really good build quality and amazing look to it. But if you wanted to use this on your R50V body, all you gotta do is align the red dots right there, snap that on, and then you can adapt that to your R50V. Now, this does look a little bit humorous just with how big and chunky of a lens is on a small, tiny camera, but with this result, you get such an amazing look and quality from your videos. I was truly impressed with just how great of an image you are able to get with both the lens and the camera. And also, this adapter allows full autofocus and aperture control of your camera. So I was able to, again, have great autofocus performance, moving in and out of the frame, still being tack sharp. And that f1.8, man, it just gave such a blurry, distinct background to my videos and really made this camera shine. And again, there are just so much high quality Canon EF lenses that you could adapt to your Canon R50V if you want to get great results while still being on a budget. The only downside I would say of this adapter is it does add more bulk to your setup, because not only are you attaching lens, but also this adapter. And again, you might have more limitations when it comes to the autofocus performance. With the Sigma lens, it's a little bit noisy. You can hear it kind of clicking back and forth. But other than that, I was still able to fully rely on the autofocus performance, even though I was using an adapter. Now there is one more lens I wanted to give an honorable mention to that I think would be great pairing with the R50V, and that is the Canon 18-150mm. This was actually a lens I borrowed from Canon when testing out the R50V when I was out on my Hawaii trip, and I just wanted a lens that could basically do it all. I could be very wide if I wanted to capture the scene, or I could zoom in to get really close up fine details isolated of a subject. I also really was impressed with the stabilization of that lens, because the camera doesn't have any stabilization, but that lens alone was able to correct a lot of those shakes and jitters, even at the focal length of 150mm. And so if you are looking for a lens that can essentially do it all when it comes to travel, and you want to have a great option, that is definitely a lens to consider. All right, so to answer one of my favorite questions is, which one would I buy if I could only choose one? Well, I would look for a lens that would give me the best of all the different worlds, the best versatility. And to me, that lens would be the Sigma 18-50. This is such a great lens. Yes, it is a little bit more expensive in this list, but if you can afford it, this would be the one lens that you could leave on your camera and do all kinds of video. It's really compact, sharp image quality, and that constant f2.8 definitely opens up the versatility of this lens and even helps out in low light performance. So that would be the lens I would pair with the R50V, just a great combination. The only thing you have to be mindful of is there is no image stabilization, so things might get a little bit shaky. But let me know in the comments down below which lens you decide to pick up, and if you want to get the most out of the Canon R50V, then be sure to check out this video right here.